Well, let's take a moment to center ourselves, and we'll begin with a prayer. Gracious and loving God, we give thanks for this opportunity to talk about hope and the ways in which hope heals the brokenness of our world. We ask that you give us open hearts and minds today as we learn about Georgia's friends and the ways that they are making a difference in our community. Inspire us to be instruments of your love and mercy and new life in this world. And all this we pray in the name of Jesus. Amen. Amen. Well, thank you. We have Paige Gilliam here. Paige, you are the president of Georgia's Friends, right? And we have Denise McFadden, who is the executive director of Georgia's Friends. We're so glad that you both have joined us today for this conversation to talk about your ministry and the work that you're doing here. So let's start with hope. I noticed on your website that Hope Heals is a sort of a slogan or a motto, which it's really fitting that we're having you here today. Last week we heard from two chaplains from the Albemarle Charlottesville Regional Jail, and their ministry is all about hope too. They say hope is everything. So I want to start by asking you what it means to say hope heals and how that connects to the work that you're doing. What is it exactly that Georgia's Friends does in our community? And remember, we got microphones behind you so you can get picked up by the camera.
Can I tell the story?
Please, yes.
Okay. I thought I'd start by, oops.
That's all right.
I'm not used to.
I know.
Am I doing this right?
You may not, yeah.
Let's turn you on. There you go.
Okay, there I go.
Yep.
I thought I'd just tell a little bit about our story, which has to do with hope. Our founder, Dorothy Tompkins, who is an addiction physician, began volunteering in the jail about 20-some years ago, and she met many women who wanted to become sober, and they thought, well, I haven't had a drink for 30 days, 2 years, whatever, and I'm sober. So they'd go out, and then they'd go back to the same situations they came from, and they'd get in trouble, and they'd come back to jail. And this just kept happening, so it was a revolving door. She met a woman named Georgia Barber, who was Georgia was a graduate of Randolph-Macon Women's College with a degree in English and fine arts. She went to the Peace Corps and came back to Charlottesville and got a degree, master's degree in education. She taught in the local schools. She was a docent at the Bailey Museum for 26 years. But she had the disease of alcoholism, and she could not shake it. I don't know what her life was like, but she lost everything. And she ended up in jail, and Dorothy got to know her, and she was a repeat offender, I've heard, as public intoxication, so she would be arrested and would come back. And the last time she was arrested and brought back, she committed suicide in jail. And I imagine that she had lost hope. There was no more hope for Georgia. And Dorothy and a group of friends got together and began thinking, if Georgia had had a place to go where she could have a safe place and learn about recovery, practice the habits of recovery, and and have the time to recover and the safety. Everything might have been different. So that's what we try to provide at Georgia's Friends, and the hope is everything. And hope and healing is our
Mantra, yeah.
yes, our mantra. And I just want to say thank you to St. Paul's Ivy and to the Booker Fund. You all make it possible for us to continue what we do for our residents, and it really makes a difference.
Denise, when did you get connected with Georgia's Friends?
I got connected about a year and a half ago. It was February of 2021. I had traditionally spent all of my working life as a marketing person in high tech and engineering firms, and I was a victim of the COVID, layoff bug that was going around, and it was such a blessing for me. I had a few months to take off and decide what I really want to do, and I saw this. I didn't know that Georgia's House existed, and was looking for a job, and it popped up. The job popped up, and I thought, wow, this is great. Because even though I've been working in high tech, I've been volunteering for nonprofits for a long time, and I'm also in recovery. So I thought that would be a good connection, and it's been an amazing journey just being there in a year and a half. The women I've met who are in recovery, the board members, the work that the organization does is just, is wonderful. The women that I meet every day, many of them are coming from jail. And if they haven't just been in jail, they have come to us from a rehab facility. Many of them have been homeless, or they're all considered homeless essentially because if they've been in jail, they have lost their home. And to see them flourish when they get there, and just be supported and feel loved. I think there's so much of this disease of addiction that causes people to, they lose everything, and not just physical things, but their dignity, their sense of self-worth, and coming to Georgia's House, we treat them just as we would treat anyone else, with respect and dignity, and you can see them change from when they arrive to when they're ready to leave. So it's just a really wonderful place to spend my days.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the process that you use to bring people into Georgia's House, and how long they're there, and what's involved in it?
Yeah, you probably know more about the process.
We get people come to us from a variety of places. Sometimes if they've been in jail for several years, they can typically come right to us. So we connect with caseworkers in jail, caseworkers in inpatient treatment facilities. They contact us. We have family members contact us, desperately looking for help for their family members, for their daughters and sisters and wives. And excuse me, those I think are the most heartbreaking. You hear the desperation in the family's voice, the mother's voice, who has just been trying desperately to get her daughter some help. And they come to us, and we provide them with some of the basics, or we work to help them get some of the basics. Because when they come to us, they don't have money, they don't have, obviously, jobs, they don't have, most of the time, which has been a surprise to me, is that they don't have an ID. So without an ID, you can't get a job. So we help them, we point them in the direction of getting set up for food stamps, help them find the resources they need to get to the DMV, to get their ID, there's so many hurdles. And one of the things that I've seen is that there are just so many hurdles and so many barriers to their recovery that the smallest thing can set them back. And one of those is getting an ID. But to us, to me, I'm like, I just go to the DMV and renew my license. But they, need to have their birth certificate, their marriage certificate, and often those are in other counties, and they can have to be gotten in person. So there's a whole series of, coordination that happens to help them get those things. And so they can stay with us for up to 2 years. We ask them to stay for 6 months to really start to get a feel for recovery and get into a routine. Right now, the average stay is about 5 months, but we're looking to try to increase that. We're looking at ways that we can help women stay longer, because we do have women who stay up to 18 months and when they graduate, and then they graduate from our program. We want to make this accessible to everyone, so we only charge $100 a month, and we have some resources that help us pay for that occasionally, but otherwise, it would be unattainable for most women, and the barriers are challenging enough, so we want to keep it reasonable. I just spoke yesterday or Friday with a woman who runs a recovery residence in Richmond, and they are for-profit, and they've had a really hard time keeping that business model going because not everyone has insurance, and they spend their time managing, like back and forth with insurance, and luckily we don't have that. And the reason we don't have that is because we have so many wonderful supporters who, like your church, that has just helped us, through the years to be able to keep going and not focus on as much on finding the money, and you don't ever have to deal with insurance. So, and it's challenging because relapse is always around the corner, no matter how long somebody's been in recovery. But our goal is not to provide services or therapy or counseling. Our goal is to provide a structured living environment that's supportive and that can help them feel like they belong and that they are worth.
Have some stability.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do they generally also participate in counseling and therapeutic interventions?
They do go to counseling. Generally, they go to Region 10.
Okay.
And many of the women, they have co-occurring disorders. They have mental health issues. They have traumatic backgrounds. And they need that time. The more time, the better. They need to heal spiritually, physically. The brain needs to heal. So that's why we provide that length of time for them. But they do get therapy, but we don't provide it. We support it.
Can you say a little more about hope and healing, what that means to you? Sort of touched on it, and as I said, these have been themes of our conversations over the last couple of weeks here. When you think about the goal, if someone comes in and hopefully they'll stay for 18 months or maybe 2 years, what does it mean for them to find hope? What does that look like in a tangible sense? And what does healing look like in a tangible sense for them?
Well, I would say that healing starts when in little steps. Thank you. It takes a long time, and it starts with little things. It starts when they come to the house and they're accepted by their sisters, and they begin to gain some self-respect, and that's part of the healing process. And they gain hope from that. Our Joy Project, which I'm sure Denise will talk more about, we started to instill a sense of, we wanted to fill a void where when you stop using and drinking, there's a void. And if someone is looking at the future as just unending, sobriety doesn't look very good. It looks dark.
What is there for me?
Right, right. So we wanted to fill that void, not just with fun things, but with activities that are going to provide a sense of agency, so that people begin to get a sense of satisfaction out of everyday life. And that spark of living that used to be ignited by drugs and alcohol, but gradually can come from just being with their other women and joking around, or doing a garden project and getting their hands in the dirt and, something they've never done before. Or something fun like going kayaking. But it's not just something that's nice to have. It's not an extra.
Right. It's interesting, Paige, your comment about community reminds me of the ways in which Jesus heals in Scripture. So one of the ways that Jesus heals is he restores people to community. Often because of their illness, they become outcasts, right? They're separated from people, they're isolated. And it sounds like one of the key ways in which you all provide healing, or an instrument of healing, is that you give people a sense of connection and community. That you're not alone, right? That you have people around you that are in solidarity with you and standing with you. That's a profound kind of healing.
It's very important.
Yeah.
That's a very important part of healing.
Yeah.
What do you say?
Yeah, so I would like to share a story that one of our alumni shared with me. She had, come from a good environment, but, as a teenager just got involved with drugs, and things spiraled out of control like they do. And she just ended up being just desperate and, really in a bad place. And eventually she felt just worthless, and, she didn't feel like she had any purpose. And she came to George's house, and George's house is a beautiful Victorian 1890s home that had been turned into a bed and breakfast a couple of decades ago. And we were lucky enough to be able to procure that as a place when we purchased it, and with the help of some major donors. And luckily it didn't require a lot of work, but it's just a beautiful place. It's got a little yard, it's got some porches. It's just a very restorative and peaceful place. And she said she just felt, completely just worthless. And one day the women were making dinner together, and someone said, "Would you like to go outside and pick some flowers for the table for dinner?" And she said it had such an impact on her, because she felt like she finally, that she deserved to be there, that she was worth something, that she was worth, living in a house like that and having those things, because she didn't feel like she deserved that. And that was so powerful to me, because I didn't really, in the past, hadn't really thought about how the environment in the house itself could provide such healing and such a powerful, source of hope. That there was something more. And she's gone on to, she's just a wonderful person. She's gone on to really do well, and she speaks for us once in a while at various events, and she's just, a lovely person who is in a much better place. But it was really a wonderful awakening for me.
In a way, you're giving the residents there access to the blessings of this life that they feel like maybe they were deprived when they were in jail or just in the throes of their addiction. How many residents do you currently have at George's house?
We have 8
8,
at the moment.
Yeah, we can take up to 11 women at a time.
Okay.
And typically in a year, we will have 25 to 30 women go through the house in terms of some come and go, but the average is about 25 per year.
Okay. And how many alumni, so to speak, do you have? And what sort of involvement do they continue to have with George's house over the years?
Well, I don't know the number of alumni, but we've served, I looked at some numbers, we've served 152 women over the years. And unfortunately, many of them have relapsed, but it's a part of recovery. But we do have several that stay involved. They give back by being peer counselors. So the education fund that you all have helped us with we have spent some of those funds to help women get peer recovery specialist training so that they can go on and help others in recovery. They serve as sponsors in the 12-step community. They come back and we've had some that have worked as evening monitors to help women in the evenings for a few hours. And they are just really, they're so dedicated to the cause of George's Friends, and they do come back and help us and continue to help others.
Yeah. And if an individual goes through your program and relapses, which, as you said, happens, are they able to come back at a later date as well? Okay.
Yeah, just a little background, Dorothy Tompkins, our founder, is an addiction medicine specialist, and she's very, she has really instilled in us the desire to give people multiple chances.
Yeah.
And because relapse is such a big part of recovery, it happens. Sometimes people take 10 tries for them to attain long-term sobriety. So we want to make sure that people know that we're always there, and if someone leaves and they relapse, we do ask that they take 30 days, they maybe go back to an inpatient facility, but then they can apply again in 30 days, and we'll look at them again as a new person.
That's wonderful. So grace is at the heart of the work. Wonderful. Well, Denise has mentioned several times, and Paige as well, that we support George's Friends. You may not know that we have multiple organizations that we are in partnership with, because, of course, as Christians, we're called to serve people in our community, to love our neighbors, to meet them where they are. Ever since I arrived here in 2018, this is a ministry that this church has been connected to, and we hosted an event here, a fundraiser, I think in 2019, and continue to support this ministry every year through our Booker Wheat Fund, which is a fund we use to support our local mission partners and national partners and even international partners as well. So this is one of the ways in which we are doing the work of the gospel in the world. It's my philosophy that there's a lot of great nonprofits in Charlottesville and beyond that are doing the Lord's work and doing it probably better than we could do if we tried to create something on our own. And the best way to make a difference is to support those groups. So it's a real honor and privilege to be able to support them. One of the best parts of this forum, I think, is hearing the questions from people in the group. So I'd love to hear what questions you have for Paige and Denise. Yes?
I don't really have a question, but Paige, I think it would be helpful for anybody that's not familiar with George's. You're trying to provide a home environment. So for people to sort of learn what it's like to be part of a family. Typical chores and responsibilities and meals together. And then the question had been about connecting with Region 10 as an example. The best practices have been sort of a safe, calm place before anything else can be introduced. Can you talk a little bit about what it's like to be in the home? I think that's helpful, because you need that respite before you can accept more.
And sort of flesh out what home life is like and why it's so important to have a home as part of the healing process.
Well, they come in and they stay in the home for 30 days. Do they go right to intensive outpatient therapy or do they wait? Okay.
Yes, we ask them in the first 30 days to sign up for an intensive outpatient program, to get a counselor in those first 30 days, to attend 90 meetings in 90 days in the 12-step program. So there are things that we ask them to do right away.
But they do begin to eat together, make meals together. They have a program where they have Thursday night dinners together where they rotate cooking. Somebody cooks dinner for everybody. We have Sunday night dinners, and there are chores. I think we have cleaning duties.
Yeah, I think, and the other piece of that is that in the first 30 days, we ask them not to get a job yet, not to start looking for a job, because we want them to get set up with all of those other things. We want them to get comfortable in recovery. We want them to get comfortable. A lot of them are coming from places other than Charlottesville or Albemarle County, so they don't know how to get around. And in the first 30 days, we also don't allow them to go anywhere by themselves because it's such a difficult time in the first 30 days. It's, there have been situations where maybe someone went out and met up with someone and used while they were, snuck off by themselves for a few minutes. So those first 30 days are really important, and I think that's a real bonding time because the women who are there work really hard to support the new women. We have a system or structure by which we have a lead resident who's someone who's been there for a while. I believe our lead resident has been there for a year, and the lead resident always sort of takes a role in helping new women get situated. And the other part is that because we don't allow them to go anywhere on their own for the first 30 days, a lot of times they have lots of appointments to go to. They get set up with a doctor and a psychiatrist and Region 10 and all these things that they need to get there, but they can't go by themselves. So they always need to work on finding someone that will go with them, another resident. And I think that's a very bonding time. They get to help each other in that first month and really feel like there are other people looking out for them and taking care of them. Because it is a tough time. They're there in the house sometimes, and sometimes they really want to work right away, but it detracts from them being able to focus on recovery and keep. It's also hard for them because many of them say, like, I have never taken time for myself. I've never taken care of myself. I've never not been doing things for someone else, and I feel guilty. I feel like I'm being selfish, and we try to help them understand that. Take a deep breath, and it's time, for you to focus on yourself. Not worrying about other people, not taking care of other people, but taking care of themselves. So the first 30 days are really important in that way, and then then comes the process of finding a job, which is also a challenge because many of the women have never had a job, or they've never had a job where they. One woman said, "I've never worked when I wasn't high," so she didn't know what it was like to work without using, and that was just mind-boggling, because she's in her 30s, and she's just never had a job where she was sober when she was working, and so there's so much that happens that, I've been thinking a lot about it, that it's not just, the women are not just working on staying sober, they're working on just either rebuilding their lives or building their lives, because many of them have never really had a solid foundation. So they're just trying to figure it out. They're just trying to figure out how to cook, how to eat healthy, how to get an ID, how to get a job, how to write a resume when they don't have any experience. So we try to help them get connected with resources for those things.
And these are little tiny things. But they're so sweet to each other. They really kind of, envelop the new person. I hear them call each other sweetie, honey, and it's just really warm. It's really nice. It's just a really sweet atmosphere.
Yes, Amanda.
I'm not quite sure if this is a question, but I have this noticing from the way that you were speaking about your surprise at the women not having an ID. So I have this theory that a lot of what we see in Holy Scripture is questioning about identity and trying to figure out who are we really, who are we in relationship to God, who are we in relationship to each other. And when you said something about how surprised you were that so many of these women come without an ID, it occurred to me what a deep and beautiful gift it is that you're giving these women to be able to reestablish their identity, their very identity, to put all of these things that have been weighing on them and that have been identifying them, right, in culture and society to the side and to start fresh and to say, okay, who am I now? And I just think it's really beautiful. So thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. That's really beautiful. It gave me chills because I thought a lot about identity recently, and that connection. I hadn't made that connection, but that is such a great point because we have dealt with issues where women have said, "I didn't like how that person talked to me. They made me feel like an addict," and they've come to talk to us and said, "I'm trying to struggle with how to describe myself. I don't want to say I'm an addict because I'm not an addict. I'm not doing drugs, but I'm okay saying that I had an addiction or I had a substance use disorder." But that's a really big part of just the basics of how do I describe myself is challenging. And in this world, some of these women, this wonderful woman who's in jail for 4 years, and she's just the most lovely person, and she's really trying to figure out who she is right now. And it's just, it's one of the things that I did not realize coming into this, that how big, exactly what you said, the identity piece of it is. It's really something that's wonderful to think about.
Thank you. Yes, Paul.
Denise, Paige, how do you deal with somebody who relapses while they're a resident? And how many times do you allow them to do it?
Well, with relapse, if someone relapses, we have to discharge them because it's, especially if they're high or if they're drunk at the house, we need to ask them to leave right away. And a lot of times, if it's in the evening, we'll take them to a hotel and pay for it because it's such a trigger for the other women. It's very difficult. We don't want them to be in the position that they have to deal with that. So, but if someone relapses, or we know that they've used, even if they're not high at the house, we have to discharge them because we can't condone that. We can't let people know that it's okay. There's a lot of things that happen day to day. So many things that happen on a daily basis where we have to kind of figure out where the line is and how far do we let things go, but relapse unfortunately is one of those where we have to ask them to leave just for the good of the whole community.
Yes, Lance.
How do women find you initially?
Typically, they find us through their case managers and that's not always the phrase. Maybe sometimes it's a counselor, sometimes it's a case manager, either at Region 10 or at the jail or prison that they're in, or in the inpatient facility that they're in. We make connections with those resources, and we want to do one of those things we want to do is do a lot more outreach this year to those various sources.
Yes, Jeff.
Well, thank you for being here and for doing this work. You mentioned that Dorothy Tompkins is an addiction physician, you said an addiction medicine specialist, and that Georgia Barber had the disease of alcoholism, and that these women have substance use disorders. And I'm wondering what the medical aspect of this program is, if they're...
We don't provide any medical services, so whereas an inpatient facility will provide detox if it's necessary, and then intensive counseling and access to health providers, we are really just serving as a support system. We are there to help the women stay the course of their recovery. So we provide them, point them to resources. We do a lot of listening and pointing them in the right direction. But in terms of medical assistance, we try to just provide them with a direction to the resources that can help them.
So I'm assuming a lot of these women haven't seen doctors.
Yeah, they have.
Often.
But you can connect them to this.
Right.
And sometimes it's just connecting them to Region 10, but our role there is to help them get connected. But yeah, you're right. I mean, some of them haven't seen a doctor, and if they have, it wasn't in Charlottesville. A lot of them. We get a lot of women from other places, and a lot of times they stay in the area, but it's not always, not always serving women from Charlottesville and Albemarle County, so they don't know the area.
Beth, I think you had a question too.
Yeah, I was curious if while they're staying there, can they have visitors from family members or children there?
Visitors, friends, family members come, can they have that in one of
Yes.
those houses?
Yes, they can. And I'm glad you mentioned family, because one of the hardest things for a lot of the women is that they've lost custody of their children because of their addictions and what they've been through in the court system. And so they're working to get custody of their children back. And when they can have visitation, they often can have visitation at Georgia centers. Sometimes supervised, but sometimes unsupervised. They may have, custody may be with a grandparent. And I know one woman there has had a grandparent bring her little boy up. But yes, and they can have friends over. We have a lovely garden where we have a pergola and chairs, and they can have friends come and visit and sit outside. The house itself is just for the women, and it's not a place where other people go in. It's really just for the women, but the grounds are wonderful for visiting.
That's great. Yes, sir.
I think you said that the average stay is like 5 months, they would like going up to 18. What's generally the determiner of somebody leaving? Do they just check themselves out, or how does that work?
It depends, but the ones that do leave earlier are sometimes the ones that really haven't made the decision to get sober. So maybe they're there because it was a condition of their release, or it might be that they needed somewhere to go when they left treatment or jail, and they needed a place to go. And they found George's house, and they're there, but they're not really bought into it. They're not really ready to try, and that is typically the biggest issue. And a lot of times they get out and they get to us, and they're just we have rules, but they're not really super strict rules, but they just sometimes just don't want any rules. They want to be able to be free and do what they want, and so that's sometimes difficult.
We have, for several years, had a program director. She's just retired, so we're in the process of hiring a new person. But our program director meets with each woman and develops a recovery plan for that woman. What are your goals while you're here? And when a woman feels like she's met those goals and is ready to go, and we work with her to, talk about her job, how she's going to support herself, where she's going to live, who she's going to live with. You know, when there are general discussions that, you know, I would say mutually, it seems like she's ready. Would you say that that's the way, ideally, the transition happens?
Yes, Sarah.
I had a couple of questions, but the first is, do you have more applicants in that space? I mean, I know you aren't full right now, but you typically have more. What's the criteria for accepting someone? And then the second one is, how many employees do you have?
Applicants, criteria for admission, and number of employees.
I can probably, some of that stuff is right on the top of my head. We do have a waiting list right now, and you know, we typically get a lot of requests to come to the house, and Dorothy Tompkins and our program director, who is now retired, typically do the interviews. So I've just started doing interviews, but we ask quite a few questions, and we're trying to find out, is the person really committed to their recovery? Do they really want to be there? Do they really want to work on their recovery? Are they someone who is going to be, you know, a good fit with the women who are there? Someone who seems like they want to be part of something bigger. So it's, you know, it's hard. You never, you know, you get some that it's just like interviewing somebody for a job. They look good on paper sometimes. It doesn't work when they get there. But right now we have 2 employees. It's just me, and we have a full-time manager of operations, and I'm actually part-time. We are looking to hire a program director, and I know you've asked if, you know, some of you have asked how you can help. If you know anyone who works in this space and is looking for a job, please send them our way. We're looking for someone who really has experience in substance use disorders and recovery, and who can be the person who's the main contact with the women to help them set up a program and meet with them day to day and help them deal with any issues that come up during the day. Our manager of operations manager, Ashley, and I have been sort of, you know, filling in and doing our best, but we're not, you know, our backgrounds aren't in addiction counseling, and so we need someone who's really good in that world. But we sometimes have had a part-time evening monitor. We work a few hours in the evening to take them to meetings and to take them to the grocery store, and we do drug tests actually randomly every couple of weeks, and we actually have the women ask us, you know, since our program director resigned, we haven't been able to drug test the women just because we're trying to do so many things, and some of them have come to us and said, we haven't had tested in a while, and we're wondering, you know, is that going to happen again? Because that is actually something that helps them stay sober. They know that they could be randomly tested, and they actually want that. It helps them. That was, you know, that was really interesting.
Yes.
Do you have any sort of mindfulness practices, group prayer, meditation, faith-based work? And the second question is, how can this congregation help?
That was going to be my question.
Read your mind.
Perfect, I know. So, what sort of spirituality or faith-based practices do you offer, and then how can this church support you all? How can the individuals here get involved in a deeper way?
Well, Paige had mentioned that we have a variety of projects, or a variety of activities that we offer to the women. It's part of what we call our Joy Project. And a big part of that is to sort of introduce some wellness and, you know, wellness kinds of meditatives, you know, things, because most women haven't been introduced to those, but we know how healing they can be. So we do have a woman who comes in. She has been coming in every week on a volunteer basis doing yoga and meditation, and she starts the yoga with, it's actually a special 12-step yoga where you do a bit of a 12-step eating first and then yoga. We are looking to add some more mindfulness programs. We are connected with a woman who's part of the Mind and Life Institute in Charlottesville, which was a place that was founded by the Dalai Lama. I had no idea that existed in Charlottesville. we want to bring her in to do a meditation program. So we have wonderful people like yourselves from other churches who come by and deliver food or make dinners or do a variety of things. And, right now, I know there are women who would like to, probably go to services, and we haven't really quite figured out yet how to get them set up with the churches that they might be interested in to get them to service on Sunday. And, one of the things that I'm actually proud of and excited about is something we instituted an equine focused recovery program last year that is wonderful. It's with a woman who is just a very spiritual person, and she does a lot of women's healing programs, and it's been very successful. It's not about personal writing, it's about just learning about being with another being and being okay in yourself and understanding boundaries and communication and that sort of connection you have with another being that doesn't have to be spoken. So one of the things we do ask for help with typically is donations toward the Joy Project so that we can continue programs like the Equine Focused Recovery. A lot of those programs are done on a volunteer basis. We have sometimes board members. In fact, we have a board member right now who's at the house with the women doing pumpkin painting and pumpkin bread baking. So it's we have board members who volunteer pay, just taking the women to breakfast and various things like that. So a lot of it is just volunteer basis, but there are things that we'd like to do more of that could be funded. We're also launching something called the Angel Program, the Angel Project, and that is to specifically help the women in those first 30 days with having volunteers sign up to just partner with that woman. We have multiple categories. One is called the Welcoming Angel, and that's someone that we see as coming to the house when a woman first starts with us and taking her to the grocery store and taking her to get toiletries at CVS. And because we have had wonderful volunteers in the past who brought food and things for the ladies, or have given us donations and things, but we can't really store those things. We don't have a lot of room. And we also would like them to be able to choose the products and foods that are good for them. And it's, again, that personal agency. I was trying to think that word yesterday. It's such a great word. So that would be the first 3 days when they're just getting settled in. And then for the rest of the month, we'd like to have someone who we will call a guardian angel, who would partner with that woman and take her to her doctor's appointments and her Region 10 appointments and take her to the DMV. And then we are calling another component of that the silent angel, and it's someone who wants to help with that program but doesn't have the time or doesn't want to be there in person, who's not comfortable with that, but would like to help. So in that case, we would just be looking for people to volunteer, that we would put them on a list, and when we bring on a new one, we would bring them on board and match them up with someone. So we're currently working on getting that off the ground. Right now, because we have a waiting list, it'll be a little while till we need somebody to do that. But so volunteers for that, funding for that, funding for the Joy Project, and we also have lots of occasionally these crazy ad hoc projects like moving the refrigerator, or taking something to the dump, or those kinds of things. And we're building a database of volunteers who people who can drive, people who could take things to the dump, those kinds of things. So.
And if somebody wanted to volunteer, they could find your contact information on the website and just reach out to either of you. Or you can reach out to me and I'll send that to you all as well.
I have cards.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Paige and Denise, for being with us today. It's been really lovely to learn more about this transformative program that you two are helping to lead. And let's just give them a round of applause.